back and get ready to have the most fun you ever had with an electronic device.
Say it with me. They're the Jets.
Jets Report this week has been brought to you by Sam Darnold.
Jets Report this week has been brought to you by Prozac. For all you Jets fans out there, get a bulk pack. Prozac.
Ritalin, I think, is more like it.
Jack Daniels, helping you get through Jets games since 1968.
All right, everybody, welcome out to the Log Room. It is Wednesday, November 25th. Thanksgiving Eve, folks. Happy Thanksgiving Eve. Jersey Johnny coming at you. And with me, as always, is Mr. RadioPete and Mr. Harry Lug Nutz. Say hello, guys.
Howdy, howdy.
Hello, guys.
Howdy, howdy. There you go. Perfect. How was everybody's day so far?
Long.
It's been pretty good,
but
actually.
good, you know.
Long but good. Well, you know, we got the holiday tomorrow and tonight technically. So, and we got a bunch of people watching already. So anybody out there listening and watching, feel free to comment in and give us your opinion on whatever we're talking about or anything that we're not talking about. That would be fine too.
That's right.
Get
John's stuffing recipe.
Yeah, a much larger array of topics that we will. Even sports related. We will.
There's things we're not talking about and things that we're prohibited from talking about.
Exactly how I make cranberry sauce every year. So there you go.
Don't ask. It involves a Dremel.
You don't want to know. How did you know? Actually, yeah, know.
All good things in life do.
Absolutely. This is true. All right. Well. Why don't we jump right into some NFL discussion here? Let's since the Giants were off last week, let's start with the Jets. Pete, you have anything to say about? I mean, hey, you know they look like a football team at least last week. You could say. You know?
Yeah. Listen, actually, they played in many ways some better football in the second half than they did in the first half. They were a little dead in the first half, so a little bit of a flip flop. Still haven't put that full 60 minutes together.
Nope.
And really, I think probably more exciting than what's going on the field is the quarterback. I'm going to call it almost a saga at this point.
Not a controversy, a saga?
Well, I mean, do we really know? Do we really know all the facts about Sam Darnold and whether or not he's coming back? It seems like he is or he isn't.
I think the controversy at this point would be Sam Darnold versus Trevor Lawrence, not Joe Flacco. By any means.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, certainly, I think last week I said that maybe Joe Flacco was giving him a better chance to win, but really doesn't look that way. I think I saw Flacco is 2-13 in his last 15 starts.
Yeah.
And, you know, whatever, not that he ever had really any magic, but at this point, I don't think Joe Flacco is any sort of upgrade over Sam Darnold, and that's saying quite a bit, I think.
No.
So, yeah, the question is, you know, what is the real intention of the Jets and how blatant are they going to be about trying not to win if Sam Darnold is healthy enough to play at some point?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to win anything. I think they're going 0-16. So, and if
I don't think that's far-fetched at all. I mean, look, their most winnable game will be from this point on out will be the last week against the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's Jacksonville technically has the tiebreaker, I think, is the strength of schedule if they both end up with one loss.
Yes.
So there is still a way for the Jets to be the Jets.
Yeah, strength of schedule. If Jacksonville and the Jets wind up tied, Jacksonville actually gets the number one pick.
So that's what we know is going to happen.
Right.
It's just a question of how it happens.
It's going to happen on Week 17. It's going to happen when the Jets beat the Patriots Week 17.
Yeah. And the only question is who's going to play quarterback. And it'll probably be both of them. You know, they'll probably start Flacco. He'll probably get hurt. And Sam Darnold will have to come in and have a great game and miraculously win. And then thereby, you know, securing at least his job for another year as they're out of the Lawrence sweepstakes.
Well, they're talking about Darnold playing this week, so...
Yeah, talking about it.
Yeah, they've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, and not the last week, but the couple of weeks ago they talked about it, and it didn't happen. So, but I don't think I really believe at this point they've bought into the fact that they're taking the first pick, and I don't think that's Adam Gase buying into it because he knows he's gone, you know, so he's just playing the role right now. It's my take on it. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but we'll see.
It's a no-brainer. If you can get Trevor Lawrence, you get him.
Right. Right.
The greater concern for me is I'm not convinced that Adam Gase is gone.
Oh, please! Could you imagine?
Well, look at this. Look, if there's always plenty of excuses, right? If you think that, or he thinks that Sam Darnold is not really the guy, and obviously he was brought in, and he's supposed to be the quarterback guru and the offensive genius. This year looks kind of like a wash because he doesn't have his guy, and they're going to get the number 1 pick. And we go, well, now here's Gase with one of these supposed all-time QB talents, and we're going to see what he can do. And we're still paying him. I can see him sticking around for another year because I'm not even going to say it anymore.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. Yeah. So to me, that's really, whether or not the Darnold is going to come back or whether they're just going to try and keep him out. I think he'll be healthy enough to come back, but is question number 1. And question number 2 is, are they really just going to keep Gase around and give him a shot at ruining Trevor Lawrence?
Ruining Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
hopefully Trevor
good.
Hopefully Trevor Lawrence's handlers know, or have that answer before the end of April.
Yeah, and listen, it wouldn't be unprecedented for him to say, "Well, I'm not going to play there, so don't draft me." Trade the pick,
right.
Or draft me and trade me, wherever else,
or stay in school.
He could stay in school, although I
don't see that happening.
I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, he's not going to turn.
I think, and just that risk. That's a huge risk, especially since his stock has kind of gone down a little bit this year due to his being out with COVID for a couple of games. I mean, they're talking about him not even being the favorite for the Heisman now. So
right. It's true. That's true. I mean, he could. It's more likely he'll probably pull up Manning, whether you want to call it Peyton or Eli or both, or an Elway, and just say where he's going, or where he's not going at least. Force a trade.
Yeah, or I mean, he could be, he could come into the situation and say, "Yeah, you can draft me, Jets, but I'm not. That guy's not coaching me."
Right.
If you're going to draft, if you want me to play for you, you got to bring in somebody else.
Somebody else. Yeah.
Whether someone would do
I don't think he has that power.
He might make that play, but I would tend to think that's not something that you would want on your resume, no matter how good you are.
As highly touted as he is, I don't think he yields that kind of power. And I think if the Jets knew that, hey, he wasn't interested in playing for them, I think they would still draft him and use him as trade bait or trade for 2 or 3 other first-round picks for that pick.
Yeah.
And, so they definitely have leverage. You still want that first pick, obviously.
Well, it's like I also said, they're probably hoping in the back of their minds. I mean, think about it. If that Sam Darnold comes back and he actually proves himself to be at least a serviceable quarterback, and somebody decent that on a good team would do well, and somebody needs a quarterback, they can actually, and they wind up with the first pick, they can pick Trevor Lawrence and trade Sam Darnold for more picks or another player or two or whatever it is,
Yeah, we'd have to kind of see what the offensive lineman situation is in this year's draft. And that's the other thing. How well can you really judge the talent, considering that the state that college football is in?
Sure.
There's only a handful of divisions that are actually playing, right. And everybody seems to have a limited schedule. So every draft pick is an even greater risk because you just haven't. You're kind of going on the previous season as much as this season, I would think.
Yeah, and I think he's already proven himself. So, I mean, I think that's one of the things that raises his stock is that throw the season away, he's still – last year he probably would have been in the top 2. I still am of the thinking that Joe Burrow is a better NFL-ready quarterback, and I think he's sort of proved that playing on a pretty garbage team and being pretty good. But I do think Trevor Lawrence is going to be the consensus first pick. And I think if he gets on any sort of team that can protect them a little bit, he'll prove himself.
Yeah, he's going to help whatever team he goes to. And depending on the team that he goes to, it depends on, will dictate how much he will help. But regardless, he's going to help whatever team he goes to right out of the gate. So,
and it might be Jacksonville, and it might be, he might be playing for his coach.
And maybe maybe the Jets wind up with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah. I mean, who knows?
Why not?
Sure.
I'll take a Minshew Darnold battle at this point.
Why not? Why not?
God, it'll be a healthy competition.
That's so sad. That sentence is sad in and of itself. As a Giants fan, I would too.
50 years, dude. 50 years.
I detect another show open in there.
And that's the Jets report.
Today on ESPN 9, the Gardner Minshew, Sam Darnold.
You could go at 8, right?
Just imagine
ESPN the Nueve.
Yeah, just imagine Michael Kay having this thing. Coming out at 5:30, the Gardner Minshew report.
That's right.
Oh, that's great.
Stash and Darnold.
The stash report.
Yeah, so, and whatever, they lost.
Yeah.
They lost. All right.
Which, is good.
They looked good in the win. That's the bottom line right there. So there you go.
Yeah. Sure.
They didn't look like the Jets. They actually looked like an NFL football team that just lost a game.
And they played a pretty good team.
And they did. Yeah. So, I mean, there's looking up.
I'm certainly happy for what's his name, the quarterback, Herbert. Is it Herbert or is it Hebert?
It's Herbert. Hebert was a good quarterback 20 years ago.
Yeah. No, I wasn't sure what the pronunciation was.
Yeah,
so I'm happy for him. He got his, I guess, third win.
Third, yeah. Yeah, he's 3-7. Yeah, tied with the Giants.
There you go.
And speaking of the Giants, they didn't lose this week.
Yeah.
No.
But it came out that hey, you know what? The more and more came out about last week's mishaps, and not mishaps, but the firing of Mark Colombo and the hiring of Dave DeGuglielmo, and whatchamacallit, the as it turns out, it's Joe Judge's way or the highway. And he's reminding, and I'm this isn't not my opinion per se, but I've read a bunch of articles and some sports pundits saying that he's actually reminding them a little bit of Parcells without the cursing.
Was that Rex Ryan that said that?
It might have been. Yeah. Early Parcells without the cursing. That's what I heard. Early Parcells without the cursing.
Early
Parcells.
Early Parcells.
You mean like
when he was 12?
Yeah. When he was coaching his friends in their neighborhood
coaching
pickup
the
game,
stickball team.
He's an NFL football coach. I think all of them are their way or the highway. It's not like these are not like guys with personalities that tend to look for. Do collages and look for
they're
consensus.
They're not flipping coins to make a decision. What do you guys think?
They're not asking for your lookbook, and,
right?
What kind of plays you want to do, or what
Hey, you want to play tackle this week?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You got it.
Go.
A certain personality type.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Dave from the Craft Beer Podcast just said Herbert won the first USFL championship with the Michigan Panthers. He said so. I don't think he's talking about Justin Herbert because he wasn't born when the USFL was playing.
Bobby Hebert, right?
Bobby Hebert, yeah,
Bobby Hebert.
So
is that? I mean, does that comparison mean they're thinking he's going to have a bright future like Parcells, or just?
I think that's
demeanor?
where they were going with it. I guess that's.
So somebody wanted a hot take, and
it's called grasping at straws.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, listen, you kind of make the call in an offhand way, and then if it turns out to be true, then you go, I was saying he looked like Parcells years ago, and now he's won a couple of Super Bowls.
Right.
Just sort of toss it out there and hope it comes true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll see what happens.
I'll say that about Adam Gase. He reminds me a lot of a embryonic Bill Parcells.
He reminds me a lot of a young Rich Kotite.
That's right. That's right.
So,
the Kotite never went over.
Yeah. Sadly, that's true. So.
He's like, I'll see your Rich Kotite and I'll raise you a couple of losses.
Of losses, yeah. Oh, Jesus. Well, on that note, let's move away from New York football for a moment, shall we? There were some other interesting games. The Packers actually lost. Packers lost to the Colts. What do you think about that game?
The Colts are an interesting team. They're one of those teams, much like Seattle and Tampa Bay, and the list goes on, that you can't really get a grasp on them. But they're peaking. They're playing good football right now.
Yeah.
And they have a veteran quarterback who seems to be putting maybe some of his past inabilities to close games out.
Right.
They tried to give that game away. They tried to, they sort of set Green Bay up to come back and win it, but they didn't. And big win for the Colts, and another toss-up game for the Packers. I think the Packers and the Colts are both teams that are looking good one week and not so great the next.
Yeah, if Green Bay, I think Green Bay just laid two eggs between the two losses between the Bucs and the Colts, but it's not the team they are. This isn't. It's not a tale of they were playing above their capabilities for the 7 wins. It's the losses that they that they're at, but or 8 wins, whatever it is, 7 wins. Yeah,
they've got questions on defense, and they've got and I think they're more limited on offense than people maybe thought.
No, that's it. No, they're definitely they're limited on offense, but they can get it done. The defense is the problem.
No, they have somebody behind center that I think is a game changer. But
absolutely. So,
but even he was unable to kind of finish him out and bring him back from behind again.
If he had another minute, they would have won the game. I
think in the NFL, like we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, I think anybody with a minute can, if for whatever reason, that last minute of a game, right. I think I could lead a team 40 yards for a field goal. It's just
with me and Pete.
Well, that'd be a lot harder, but
yeah.
And we could try.
we could both play left tackle.
There you go.
We could get an extra guy. Listen, they're two of the most kind of yo-yo-y teams. Packers expected to be better, right? The Colts are kind of a surprise up to this, not up to this point, but early in the season, despite their, I think it was a week 1 loss to Jacksonville. But I mean,
who was that?
If that was a win, then we'd be going, we know their defense is good and they're revitalized with Rivers, and the Colts are a real factor here. If they were, 8-2, we might put a little more stock in them. But these are two teams that have been bouncing up and down like so many have.
Sure.
So this game wasn't really a surprise.
No,
I wouldn't say. But again, you would think the Packers would be the better team. But listen, Rodgers is, I don't think he's lost a whole lot, but he's not the same Aaron Rodgers he was 3 years ago or 2 years ago, or maybe necessarily even last year.
No, absolutely.
Counts for something.
Absolutely. I don't think I would have. It was difficult to pick the game. I was leaning towards the Packers, obviously, but I don't. I didn't discount the Colts, but
it was a close game.
Yeah, I will tell you this much though: the conversation post game between Rodgers and Rivers was probably one of the longest quarterback conversations post game I've ever seen. They just kept going and talking and laughing. It was like old home week watching that. So, but
well, they're both in pretty good positions, as far as their teams go.
Yeah,
relatively. So they're.
And their careers too, but that's besides
right. But I mean, there's only how many teams in the NFL that have 7 or more wins, or more than 7 wins? 3 maybe. That's as far as looking at playoff pictures. They're
sure. Are any of them in the NFC East?
Yeah, no,
not at all.
Well, if you just flip the record over, then
there you go.
But I mean, wins were losses and losses were wins.
The Colts have beaten Tennessee and Green Bay in consecutive weeks. Those are quality wins.
Yeah.
They hadn't really beaten anybody. They won the games, some of the games they were supposed to, with the exception of Jacksonville. They lost to Cleveland, which Cleveland's another one of those teams you put in that category of which team is going to show up. They've beaten the teams that they were supposed to beat. And now they've had 2. They're one of the teams, I will say this about the Colts, that seem to be peaking right now.
Right.
They didn't beat, had they been like the Packers, they would have beaten Tennessee and then come out and laid an egg against the Packers. But,
right.
They lost to Baltimore. Baltimore's a good team, obviously. So
are they though? I mean, they were and they are a couple of times here. But
they're a tough team. They're a tough team to score against. Yeah.
They're a tough team to score against, but
their offense is more one-dimensional than he is.
They're one-dimensional. I was going to say they're a tough team to score against, but they are beatable. And if that makes any sense, but it's true.
Yeah. Listen, the Colts wins are not flukes, but they're just not consistent.
Right.
No.
All right.
Well,
what else do you want to talk about?
Well, the Chiefs. It's I'm full on Mahomes today, so
unusual to see them come back and win a game late. The Chiefs never do that.
Never.
If they're down heading into the last 6 minutes of a game, they never win.
You count them out. You do. But
look, Raiders kind of, had their number, right? It was a Herculean effort. We've talked about how anybody can come back, but we said there's really kind of no way that the Raiders are going to sweep the Chiefs this season. They came close. They came close.
Yeah.
So
they did.
It was a good game, and it was a classic Mahomes. I think you can actually probably say that, right?
You could say
he's done it enough times that you could say him coming back in the last minute and 45 seconds is classic.
You know what? It's funny to say because it usually takes years and years to be
that's what I mean.
Classic, but he's done it that much in 3 years,
and in big games too. Like I don't know, the Super Bowl, let's say.
Just for instance,
and a bunch of them not coming back from 5 down or a touchdown.
28 points down.
Coming back from multiple scores down multiple times.
No one would ever come back from that score, and he did. Yeah,
you got Mahomes. He's got to get on that.
He's got to get on that.
There's a trademark and some
I think he's got to call Randy up and figure that out how he did it. And there you go.
Hopefully the bus took a lap around the stadium.
You know what?
I don't think. No. I think the bus went right to Arby's.
No,
for Andy
Andy was hungry.
They doused him in barbecue sauce instead of Gatorade when they won the Super Bowl. So.
Of course they did. And then never mind.
So that was a good game.
It was good.
The Chiefs are the team to beat, right? Obviously, they're one game behind the Steelers. Does anybody think the Steelers are a better team than Kansas City? No.
I do not. I think the Steelers are for real. I think the championship game is going to be the Steelers and the Chiefs. That's my picking right now. In the AFC, the championship game is going to be the Kansas City and Pittsburgh.
I think the Super Bowl is going to be Kansas City and New Orleans.
Yeah, you know what? Let's switch to New Orleans for a second. What do you Taysom Hill? I think that game he just cemented his role as the starting quarterback after Brees retires.
Well, one game.
Yeah, you know what? He played pretty damn good. You know, he
really
did.
What's his name? Played good last year in a backup role too for the Saints. They have a good offense, and why is his name escaping me right now? But he hasn't looked quite nearly as good this year as he did last year on the Saints. So
you mean the
Jameis Winston?
Yeah. No.
The former New York Jet, Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, Bridgewater.
Yeah,
Teddy Bridgewater.
He's a good quarterback, but
he is.
He just can't seem to hang on to a starting job.
No,
and it's not through terrible play either. There's just always kind of somebody better.
Oh, the kid from the kid that he was like about 12 teams he got let go from, and he threw 15 touchdown passes in the XFL, and now he's the starting quarterback for the Panthers now over Bridgewater.
Yep.
What's his name? Walker? I forget his name. But he can't hold on to a starting job. He looked pretty good. He definitely looked good, better than he did. But, he looked good enough that it probably would have behooved the Jets to keep him when they had him. But,
Well, that was a move because they didn't want there to be any quarterback controversy.
Right. No, we said that.
We could have given them that.
We've talked about that before, and they did believe in him at that point. But, you know what? We move on.
Listen, if he was still around, they wouldn't be 0-10.
No,
I mean,
he probably would have won one of those games.
I mean, they beat it. They beat him handily. I think the rest of the team stepped up. Let's not anoint him as the next Aaron Rodgers, but he completed 18 of 23 passes. He hasn't thrown a touchdown yet. He hasn't thrown an interception yet.
True,
and it was the Falcons,
and he was sacked 3 times. So we'll see. It was the Falcons.
This is true. Yeah, it was the Falcons. So,
I didn't watch that whole game, but watching it, I'm like, all right, he's the next Steve Young. I'm like, okay, let's hold on a little bit.
If you're going to be
a little bit,
if you're going to be a backup, New Orleans is pretty decent place to be a backup.
It's
right?
a good system. It's a good system, and yeah, I think he's. I mean, on paper, he's a great fit for them. He's sort of,
I mean, who's the backup in Kansas City? We don't even know.
Couldn't tell you.
But if Holmes went down and the guys comes in and is at least decent. Now we're not going to say
Le'Veon Bell. Actually, Le'Veon Bell's the back.
that was my first thought. I was going to say that. It's probably Le'Veon Bell. But if, I mean, obviously we're not going to say he's the heir apparent to Mahomes because Mahomes is so young. But you could come in and be a decent quarterback on a really good team, which I think the Saints certainly offensively are. And then we go, man, he looked great. Well, of course he did. He was, throwing to experienced guys who are big playmakers. So
Sure.
I wouldn't anoint him yet, but yeah, he looked good enough to win. And that certainly, I'm sure, is a sigh of relief for the Saints because Mr. Bree's going to be out for probably until the playoffs, right?
Yeah,
is that what we're thinking?
5 cracked ribs and a collapsed lung. Yeah, he's not coming back anytime soon. I'd be shocked if he comes back for the first playoff game. So
yeah.
And to be honest with you, and I'll say this right now, if Taysom Hill, and it's an if, obviously, but if Taysom Hill just runs the table as quarterback for the rest of the season and Breeze isn't back by the first playoff game, how do you take him out and put Breeze back in for the second playoff game?
Very easily.
I know, I agree, and they should, but it's still like if
now he's running the table. I mean, come on, let's see how things go.
No. I
yes,
said
of course.
I said if.
Yes.
If. I'm being hypothetical, and he's not going to run the table. The Saints aren't winning out. I'm just saying.
I think Breeze is back before the playoffs start. I really do.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Well, they just put like a little balloon pump there. Right, and with a thing, and just
it collapses again.
Pump that
or
lung
just one of those Reebok the pumps, like just push it.
Yeah, just a little thing right on his uniform, just pressing it. Okay, lung's full. Let's go.
That's some old school stuff, though. Two broken ribs and a collapsed lung.
I know.
Yeah. I think Fred Biletnikoff played his last 3 seasons with that.
Well, that was 2 collapsed ribs.
That's right.
And a cracked lung.
Six collapsed lungs and 40 broken ribs.
Right. He had extra lungs and they just kept collapsing.
I just kept putting him in on the sideline during the middle of the game.
And he smoked at
halftime. That's old balls.
That's right. That's Vladi Divac style.
Exactly.
All right. What do we want to talk about? The Cardinals Seahawks? Did we?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say I was going to bring it up. Let's talk Cardinals Seahawks, and I got one other thing to say to Harry. But Cardinals Seahawks. Bring that up. That's interesting.
Okay. So I was wrong.
Was I?
You were close to being right, though. I mean, it was a good game.
That was
Seattle proved something.
Yeah, they it was we call it a must win for them, and it was, and they came through. But I don't think Arizona is diminished in any way by that loss.
No,
they
still
are looking like a team to be reckoned with.
They were right.
They're still looking like a team that's going to get beaten by Taysom Hill.
Well, I'm expecting him to run the table, and then there'll be as it's known, Hofstetler decision to be made.
Yeah,
Hofstetler is a Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. Okay, Hofstetler, yeah.
Okay, there we go.
It's the whole universe is like him. By the way, Taysom Hill is a very special Taysom Hill this week on the WB. It sounds like some bad
Blossom.
Yeah, Taysom Hill. Who knows what Jason?
Did you see the story that he was listed as a tight end?
Yeah, he was listed
football. They
for
had
a tight.
To change. He got like 38 points or something, and a lot of people had picked him up and made out very well. So
he was listed as a tight end for fantasy football, and he played quarterback. That was because they announced it. They announced it that morning that he was going to play quarterback.
Yep.
Because James Winston was listed until that morning, until like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, that he was the starting quarterback. But that was pretty funny. He got like 90 points for fantasy football.
A lot of people did very well with him as their tight end.
Jameis Winston wasn't he the opposing quarterback for Daniel Jones's first win in the NFL?
That would be correct.
Yes.
That would be correct.
That's how good he is.
That's
he might end up as Daniel Jones's backup.
He might.
Hey,
that would be it. I mean,
well, right now Colt McCoy is Daniel Jones's backup. So
pew pew pew.
exactly.
Anytime you say Colt McCoy, you got to say pew pew pew
pew pew.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Right.
And speaking of pew pew pew, the Broncos beat the Dolphins.
yeah. They tried to lose it, but they a quarterback who didn't suck and had a decent game, and the Broncos defense just looked really good against the Miami team that just seemed like they came out flat.
Yeah,
yeah, they did.
This is my question to you guys, because there's obviously a lot of people talking about, both sides of this issue. Oh, you can't pull the young kid. No. You got to let him stay in there and deal with some adversity. Other people saying, hey, listen, he wasn't particularly good. Fitz was good before he got, benched. So, yeah, you take him out and then you put him right back in, the following week as your starter in Tua. And then the theory that I heard, which is kind of gaining traction with me, is I think he got sacked 5 times, and maybe they're just trying to protect him. Maybe they are worried about his fragility.
And there was talks that maybe he was beat up a little bit. He was hurt.
It could be.
Look, Fitzmagic was one bad pass away from bringing him back and winning that game.
Yeah, that is true. It is.
Well,
true.
right.
It wasn't even really a horrible pass. It was just he threw an interception.
And listen, that's kind of what he's done a lot of times. Right. For at least for every time he's.
It is the second half of the season now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's getting
the Fitzmagic seems to only work in September and October.
We're slowly creeping into Fitztragic at the moment.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's kind of like
it gets really bad after Christmas.
Right.
But I guess Tua will start again this week. But I thought it was very interesting that people were actually saying, well, they're doing it to keep him safe. Because they're worried about him. They don't want him to get hurt, which is not something really that anyone has ever admitted. We took our quarterback out so he wouldn't get killed.
Yeah,
maybe at the end of a season, but
if there's anybody to protect quarterback wise, it's him. I mean, there's only so much twine that they can fish through his body to keep his, muscles attached to his ligaments. But yeah, it's He's I think he was hurt. I think he was hurt a little bit, and they just erred on the side of caution.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think that he was definitely he was getting banged up. I don't think he's going to miss any games because of it, but it was getting to the point where they were worried, and they're like, what, sit down, kid. We'll take care of this.
Yeah, it makes more sense than punishing him. For not being great in his third start,
and I don't think it's a matter of they thought they had a better chance of winning with Tua. I think it's the fact that we need to get this guy some snaps, and I think they're playing for next year. If they happen to win some games along the way, great. But they're realizing that Tua is not the youngest rookie quarterback in the league. And I think they want to give him a half a season under his belt, so that next year they can see what they have and really build this team around him.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly what they're doing. If they were able to get into the playoffs and sneak in, and maybe they still can. I mean, they're not going to.
They certainly could.
I don't think that they're going to win the division at this point. I think it's the Bills' division, but I think they're going to wind up. But the way other teams are playing, I think they have a decent shot of getting one of the wild card.
That was a big loss for the Dolphins. A team they should have beat. Yeah, it was in Denver, but they should have won that game, and that was a step in the wrong direction for the Dolphins.
It could be a momentum killer, but I think they'll rebound from it.
Yeah, well, we'll see this week. So,
what else we want to talk about? Rams over the Bucks.
Yeah, Rams over the Bucks.
Another close game.
That was definitely a close game. Fantasy wise, I have to tell you, I was number 2 in one of my leagues. Not that this matters to anybody out there, but I was number 2 in one of my leagues, playing the number 1 team, and I only had Cooper Kupp going, and he had to get me 1,000,000 points on Monday for me to win. And that last pass that Goff threw to Kupp put me 1 point over, and I actually won my game on Monday night. So
I think the last 7 catches he caught were for like 6.5 yards.
They were, it's like a total of I'm like, come on, more than that, please, But yeah, no, I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought the Bucs were winning. I think we all did, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
They're another team,
except for the coin. The coin got
the coin actually got that game right. Actually,
the coin got that one right.
Yeah.
So does that say more about the Rams or more about the Bucks?
I think that says more about the coin, actually.
I think. Well, if you use the analogy of the coin, I think I think both of these teams are a toss-up every week when they play a tough team, and it seems like this Bucks team can't win in prime time.
You know what? Go ahead.
I think both teams. I think the Bucks have more opportunity to really do something, but there's something there. There's some disconnect. The offense started out great, and then it looked confused. It looked as if something the Rams were doing on defense, just nobody was open, and they couldn't move the ball. And the Rams actually played. I thought their defense looked really good, but how much of that is just Tampa Bay's inability to really make adjustments on offense? I don't know.
Yeah, that. Sorry, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I got to be honest. I watching the beginning of the game. I mean, Evans was just catching pass after pass after pass, and then midway through, I guess it was like the second quarter, probably midway through the second quarter, it became the Antonio Brown show, and it seemed to me that Brady forgot there was anybody else on the field except for Fournette and Brown, and there was like nobody else on the field but them, and that was it. And
well, they started to double Evans, and Brown was kind of the underneath option, and if you notice, a lot of the time. And so, we all know how much Tom Brady likes to dump passes underneath. So sure. I don't think he was really targeting Brown. I just think that they've realized that Evans is, without a doubt, the number one receiver, and they bottled him up quite a bit. They just don't seem to have any variety in their offense. The running game wasn't all that dynamic, and it just seems as if it seemed like there was a disconnect with his receivers on a lot of passes. And look, one of the things that Tom Brady, there's some talk about this. I can't remember where I was reading this, but all of the discussion has been, well, Brady can obviously win without Belichick. But one of the things that Tom Brady had at his disposal for years and years and years was an offensive coordinator and a head coach and a bunch of other coaches on that offensive side that could help them make changes at halftime or during the game.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound as if I'm not a big fan of the coaching staff on Tampa Bay, but I'm not. I don't think that from an offensive coordinator standpoint or a head coach standpoint, I think that he's had talent before when you coach the Cardinals. Yeah. And I just don't see a dynamic offense coming out of a Bruce Arians team. I just don't. And I think he's got some good talent. I just see they don't seem to be able to make changes on the fly as well as some other teams do.
Yeah, I was about to say the very same thing. We did the whole before the season started, who's going to do better without the other, right? Brady or Belichick? Right. And, is Bill Belichick going to miss the brilliance of Tom Brady more than Tom Brady's going to miss the brilliance of Bill Belichick? And that's where I think exactly what you said is exactly right. They're missing that ability to make those changes. To me, that is really the heart and the essence of what makes Belichick a great coach, is that when it ain't working, he figures out how to make it work.
Right.
And most of the time he's figured it out before the game on either one side of the ball exquisitely, usually on the defensive side. But when that's not the case, he figures out what to do and what changes to make. And I think Brady is, really missing that. And I wouldn't say he's gone way downhill or anything, but that's, again, I don't think it necessarily settles that argument. But that's what Tom Brady is missing. And
it's also Josh McDaniels. And one of the things that Belichick and McDaniels were able to do is they were able to take less talent, let's be honest, especially in the last number of years.
Much less talent.
And game plan where they were just like, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to mix it up, but we're going to do things that keep the defense on their toes. Right. A lot of passes to the running back, a lot of short swing passes, a lot of getting the ball out of Brady's hands quickly so that when the time does come to go vertical, it's not as predictable. And I see much more of a drop back vertical game coming out of Tampa Bay. And even with the receivers that they have, it just seems that at times, they can bottle them up.
Yep.
And it doesn't seem as if they're fooling anybody right now.
No. No, I agree. It's
And
I
Gronk
totally
has
agree.
been disappointing.
Yeah.
And that was to be expected. I mean, it's hard to come. It's hard to come back.
He's not having a terrible season, but he's not having a Gronk season.
But in the past, they've been able to game plan with Gronk. Where in the past, when it was Brady and Gronk, they would just hit Gronk 2-3 times and then on a drive to get that 6, 7, 8 yards. He was a weapon that was more of a look down for Brady, and it just doesn't seem like he's playing that role because their offense looks predictable. It looks predictable at times.
Totally. I think that you hit the nail on the head too. You take this Tampa Bay team and you move it to New England with Belichick and Josh McDaniels and everybody else, and they're running away with. I mean, it's the AFC East, but they're running away even over Buffalo this year.
Of course.
Yeah. It's. I like Bruce Arians. I just don't think he's 2 steps short of Belichick or Reed or any of those guys. He's right there, but he doesn't quite pull the right punches at halftime, and that's what it really boils down to.
Well, they're dropping
make
back
the adjustments. So
they're dropping back either in man coverage or they don't. When it's zone coverage, they can't seem to be finding that middle ground between the the underneath coverage and the deep coverage. And so it just seems like every pass where there's a receiver downfield, there's a safety and a cornerback and around the receiver at all times. It just does. There's no out patterns. There's no timing patterns. They start the game like that, but then it just seems like it becomes much less fluid and there's less motion. It just doesn't seem like there's enough variety in the offensive schemes that the Bucs have, and I think it's really obvious. I mean, it just looks like they're a different team at times.
It does. I think they're. I'm equating right now. I'm equating the upper echelon, if you will, of the NFC is at this point is Green Bay, Seattle, and Arizona, and the next tier down and New Orleans. And the next tier down is the Rams, the Bucs, so forth and so on. There.
Hey, don't get out those Dallas Cowboys.
Oh well, of course not. I mean,
they look pretty good.
They look pretty good.
In the win column, there's a 4-way tie for first place in the NFC East right now. So.
I mean, honestly, in a sense, that that is a very not to watch them play, but it's a very exciting division because.
Absolutely.
I think the
NFC
in general is pretty exciting.
10 weeks in, and it's anybody's game still.
What division? Well, you know what? I mean, the NFC West isn't that far away from saying the same thing.
But I mean, there's I think the whole NFC is interesting, and I don't necessarily agree with you, John, in that I think next week if Tampa Bay comes out and beat and has a great win, and Seattle lays an egg, or one of those, or the Rams come out and lose to somebody that they shouldn't do, we're reevaluating it again. I think especially with Drew Brees out, I think any of those teams in a playoff game can beat the other one. I think the Rams, the Bucs, Arizona, New Orleans, I think any of those teams can beat the other one in a playoff game.
The NFC is definitely more wide open than the AFC is. AFC, I'm still saying that it's Kansas City and Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, no, it could be others. It could be others
because he's way out there.
I mean, I'm way out there. But I mean, hey, it could be.
Check your email. I think Fox just offered you
an analyst job.
An analyst job next to Terry Bradshaw.
No, but seriously though, I mean, it could be the Colts. The Colts could. I mean, we're saying that they're for real.
The Colts are just like the other teams that we just mentioned in the NFC.
Right.
There's a lot of parity this year. There's a lot of I think not having a training camp. I just think. Right. Did you wear your yoga pants when you went to Panera Bread? God, I hope not.
But no, I agree with you, and that's my point. Actually, really, when you talk about the Colts, you talk about the Bills, and any of those, and the Titans, and really the Texans. I mean, the Texans are. Deshaun Watson is playing amazing football right now, and it's ridiculous that the record is what it is, but. You throw any of them in there, and yeah, they're kind of all muddled up with that. My point is, I'm not going out on a limb saying that the Chiefs and the Steelers are the elite of the AFC. It's just obvious, whereas the NFC, it's kind of muddy,
and I think the Steelers and the Chiefs are there's two different reasons why, to me, they're the elite. I think for the Chiefs, it's talent. And yes, they have Andy Reid and they have a great coaching staff. There's familiarity there. They've won a Super Bowl. They've been playing together, and they're just really deep. On the Steelers, this is sort of like the quintessential team in football right now.
Right.
Because, yeah, Roethlisberger's having a good year, and yes, they have some talent on the offensive end, but it's defense, it's controlling the ball, and they have really good coaching.
Right.
And so they've won it before. I think when it comes down to raw talent and the ability to really put up points when the game's on the line, I think Kansas City just has a big advantage. And their defense has improved. Kansas City's defense is better than it was last year.
It is. It's better than it was when they won a Super Bowl. They're a better team overall than they were when they won last year. When they won it all last year.
Yeah.
So. Well, on that note, should we do some picks? We got a lot to pick tonight. So.
Sure.
Yeah, we got 5 games to pick.
There we go. Beaten by the coin.
Beaten by the coin.
I'm sure I'll lose to the coin.
No one wants to be beaten by the coin.
All right.
Happy
I got my yoga pants on now with that music.
or maybe they're off.
I'll never tell. All right. Quick recap from last week. It's pretty much all but over, folks. Jersey Johnny goes 3-1. He's now 31-8, a ridiculous 31-8. He leads myself by 6 games. I am 25-14 after a 2-2 week. Harry also 2-2 last week, and 22-17. 1 game ahead of the coin, who went 3-1, only losing with them darn Raiders. Yep. So there we go. Thanks, Arizona. I will never pick you again.
Yeah.
So there we go. So congratulations, John.
Thanks.
And I think a couple of weeks ago I said we needed to decide what the prize for winning the season's pick contest would be. At this point, I said, yeah, there you go. I will.
The gift certificates of Panera Bread.
I'll even wash them and I'll put them in a special Panera mug, a travel mug, Panera travel mug with my yoga pants, freshly washed, and a gift certificate for a free bagel.
There you go.
There you go.
All right,
that'll be the prize. So.
All right, I'm going to start tanking.
All right, so let's take a look here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games to pick this
7
week.
games.
So here we go.
And we're going to pick the one for tomorrow night that's not actually played, but
we're going to start.
We'll start with
let's start with the Thanksgiving Day games.
Sure.
Houston at Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, Detroit looked really bad last week.
They did.
Houston, we just were talking about, they should be, or maybe are better than their record. Should I flip the coin for each of us?
I think you should. I think you.
Anybody want to go first on this one?
I don't. Why don't you go first?
All right. I don't know. How does Matt Patricia have a job? I'll take Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Thanksgiving, but they don't actually ever win on Thanksgiving, do they?
No, they really.
They just play on Thanksgiving.
They just play on Thanksgiving.
It's not like it's a charm for them.
No. And John Madden's not doing any other games, and they're not giving out like 6-leg turkeys.
All right.
Anymore,
I'll take the Texans. Why not?
All right. I mean, I really would like to see the Lions win the game. One, because I like the Lions better than I do the Texans. Also, because it's Thanksgiving and it's their game. It's when I think of Thanksgiving and I think of football, I think of the Lions. It's really what it boils down to. But I really think the Texans are winning this game. So, yeah, I'm going to Texas.
Harry?
I don't know. Who cares?
Well, who cares sounds like it starts with H.
I'm gonna go with the Texans. This Lions team seems like they're heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
All right. Let's flip. Remember, the coin went 3-1. Coin says heads, which is the home team. So the coin is taking Detroit. How about that?
Detroit. Look at that.
There we go. And we might all be proven wrong once again. All right. Washington and Dallas in Texas.
Yeah, that's your game. I said you went first last. You should go first now. It's your game.
Well, Dalton looked better, but yeah, I'll take Dallas. Why not? Give me a reason to watch.
There you go, Harry.
Boy, these are some barn burners on Thanksgiving Day.
It doesn't make an easy pick. You know what, though?
It's easier.
I'm gonna watch my sweet potatoes burn.
It's easier. It's easier to eat during the game now.
Yeah, exactly. There's no rhyme or reason to this, and obviously you can tell by my record lately that there isn't. I think Washington is going to win this game.
Yeah, I actually have to echo Harry. I don't know. I think last week was a fluke. I think that Minnesota just laid an egg. I think Minnesota, even as good as they had been playing the last couple of weeks before that, I think that they really should have won that game. I think Washington's winning the game.
I want both of them to win, though, so that
I don't suddenly think Dallas is the Giants. Yeah, I don't suddenly think Dallas is good, but I think they're better than Washington. All right, let's flip here. Tails comes up tails. So that means
Washington.
I'm out on a limb.
There you go.
Dallas Cowboys. All right. So Baltimore at them Steelers, which is not being played tomorrow night. It's going to be played Sunday instead.
Yep.
But we're going to pick it anyway.
Sure, why not?
Because that's what we do.
Exactly. I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, you know what? I just think the Steelers have a better team than Baltimore right now. I know the game's in Baltimore, right?
No, it's in Pittsburgh.
It is in Pittsburgh. Oh, even there you go, even more.
Yeah, that's kind of
right.
like
the Steelers won in Baltimore. That's right, they won.
Yeah, that's kind of the clincher right there.
There you go. Yeah, I think the Steelers have a better team, and also Baltimore. They have already 4 or 5 players out with COVID. If this game actually does happen on Sunday, I think the Pittsburgh's winning.
All right. Harry?
It's hard. It's hard to say okay, the Steelers are going to sweep the season with the Ravens. They've won a lot of close games, the Steelers, against teams that maybe they should, good quality opponents. I just think there's something off with Baltimore. If this was 4 weeks ago, I would probably pick the Ravens. I don't see them beating the Steelers in Pittsburgh. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm going to take Pittsburgh too. I think for Johnny, it's the COVID.
Yeah.
If we weren't in a pandemic and they had all their players, they'd have more of a chance.
Sure.
But we talked about their one-dimensionality, and when you're losing a bunch of starters and going up against what is a very good Steelers team, it does not bode well. So yeah, it will be a sweep. And the coin says heads, so they like the Steelers as well. So we can relax. We know we're going to win at least one, guys.
There you go. Exactly.
All right. Another. Well, listen, Miami and the New York Jets. I'll pick this one since I'm a Jets fan. I'll go first. And I think that it's going to be Miami. They're a better team. It still can't put an entire football game together. And I don't think it really matters who starts for Miami. They're just better overall.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you on that one. I'm pretty sure that Miami's winning this game. In fact, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Miami's not winning this game. Jets are losing this game. So if you wanna call it that,
a bold statement.
Bold statement, yeah. So yeah, Miami's the winner.
If the Jets are going to win one game, it's either going to be against Miami or New England.
And they failed against both of those teams.
I don't know. The Dolphins looked pretty bad against the Broncos. Are the Broncos better than the Chargers?
Well, is their defense better than the Jets' defense?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
If they are, not by much, right? I don't know. This might be the game the Jets put it all together. I'm tempted to pick them, but
I mean, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to pick the Jets.
All right. I love it. All right, let's see. Let's see if Harry will be vindicated by the coin.
Let's see.
Heads. You and the Jets. You and the coin. Taking the Jets. How about that?
Harry and the Jets.
Harry and the coin.
There you go.
All right. What we didn't mention, we'll mention it now, of course. So the Giants travel to Ohio to take on the Bengals.
Yes, they are.
Really, does anybody feel happy about Joe Burrow getting hurt? Even if you're Cleveland, I mean, that's terrible.
It's disgusting.
Just terrible.
And they're saying now he's got major damage to his knee. It's not just the ACL.
Yeah, it's not just a tear and not just an ACL, MCL tear.
He may not be back next year. Might be looking at 2022 at this point.
Yeah.
Brandon Allen is starting a quarterback for the Bengals.
Right. Anybody want to take the Bengals?
No, I'm taking the Giants. Giants are winning the game.
Harry?
Unfortunately, I think the Giants are going to win.
Unfortunately.
Well, listen, you're past the point of no return for Lawrence. So
I know.
Coin says tails. They like the Giants too. So there we go. Speaking of just very quickly, do you guys put any stock in they just had Burrow throwing too many times, or you were setting him up to get hurt? It was, he threw 50 times a game. What do you think's going to happen?
It's one of the arguments about throwing rookies into the NFL right out of the gate.
Right.
When you think about it, the guys who get hurt a lot of times are the younger quarterbacks, because they just don't have that. They don't have that instinct to just get rid of the ball and get out of the way.
And they're not on good teams.
And even the veteran quarterbacks, there's a lot of injuries to the quarterbacks this year, more so than normal. It's unfortunate. I hope he can come back. I think everybody knew how high I was on him coming out. We'll see. I mean, he has been hit a lot this year, and that's one of the risks you take when you get the first pick and you're on a team there's a reason why they got the first pick.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Chicago heads to Lambeau. Talk about a team that's up and down. Well, up and then down. At least it was with Chicago. It was one direction and then the other. They really have not bounced up and down very much.
No, they haven't.
They were 5-1, and then they were 5-5. And
is there a report that I actually haven't seen it? Is Foles or Trubisky going to play?
Don't know. I haven't looked.
Yeah, I got to look.
I'm waiting for David Fales. He's sitting by the phone waiting. Foles, Fales. There might be some of that magic.
Fales. There you go. Yeah, I'm going with Green Bay. Green Bay's winning him.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay can't lose this game. I'm not really quite sure the last time Green Bay swept Chicago. I don't even think they beat them twice last year.
No, they didn't. Actually.
So, but I think if they don't win this game, then we can't be talking about Green Bay as being in the upper echelon of any league.
No, not at all.
Yeah. This is a game you got to win.
Yeah.
Okay. Coin says heads. They like
Green
Bay. There we go.
All right.
And last but not least, Seattle versus Philly. Anybody like the Eagles?
Nope.
Don't think
Harry?
So. Not for me. I'll take Seattle.
No, I don't. Well, no. Again, this is another game where if the Seahawks don't win this, then we just can't. It's coming down to the time of year where you got to win these games,
right? And it's the same as like you said with the Packers and the Bills and Packers and the Bears. It's almost worse. I mean, if the Packers lose to the Bears, at least they have the excuse it's a divisional game.
Yeah.
If the Seahawks lose to the Eagles this year, I forget it.
Well, the Seahawks play the Eagles, and then the Eagles play the Packers. So we'll see. Which team beats the Eagles by more.
There you go. That'll be the telltale. We'll have to make notes of that.
That'll be a side bet.
Exactly.
All right. Coin says heads.
Likes the Eagles.
Coin likes the Eagles. So.
Oh wow, that coin!
I don't know. The coin might be stumbling this week.
Hopefully, I even with my pick of the Jets, I can get a little bit of distance from the coin.
Well, you've got one.
I think we both picked the Jets.
So. Both picked the Jets. You've only got two. You've got Houston, and the Coins got Detroit. You've got Seattle, and you've got Philly. So you got a chance to pick up a couple games.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is the same.
So
there we go. This is going to be an
go.
interesting. This is a make or break week.
This is a make or break
I think
week,
as far as the pick champion goes, but I think it's over one way or the other.
There you go. I agree.
John, congratulations, John.
Thank you. I tried. Well, you know what? I have a few weeks left to try and lose your yoga pants. I'll do my best.
At least there's something that would be considered a worthwhile reason, I think.
Exactly. There you go.
Can you blame the guy?
I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, now I have an excuse if I wind up tanking. So, anyway. All right. Cool. There you go. Well, you know what? That brings us to our new segment of the show. Well, our new. I mean, it's new. It's probably about half of the shows we've done so far, so it's not really new anymore by any means. But top 10 lists. This week we're doing top 10 running backs. Top 10 running backs in the NFL. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go out on. I'm not going to go out on a limb. I'm going to preface this segment by saying that by all means, and these two gentlemen will agree with me, this was by far the hardest top 10 list that we've had to do so far.
Yeah.
The top 10 list could have easily been a top 20 plus list. There were so many. I mean, you'll know
absolutely.
and you can probably figure it out. But the top 4 plus spots are pretty much locked in. But you know, the rest of that top 10 list could have been 20 different guys.
There were a whole bunch of guys that could have been somewhere between 5 and 10.
Absolutely. So hard. So this was difficult. So we did our due diligence and we made our lists and we added them up and we figured out
and some people made really bad decisions, but you know.
Well, we'll see what they pan out to be.
Someone has to.
That's right.
It might as well be me.
But we'll make mention of the fact that there were after we're done we'll mention a couple of honorable mentions. We won't do it now. We'll do it when we're done. I think we might even do it when we're done with all balls. But in any event, let's start with number 10. Pete, why don't you get us going with number 10?
Number 10, is that TD? Oh, yeah, touchdown, Tony Dorsett. Of course, being a Cowboy fan and he being a running back during that period when the Cowboys were America's team, and that's when I fell in love with them. What can you say? 12,739 rushing yards, 77 rushing TDs, a little over 16,000 all-purpose yards, and 91 total touchdowns. Football Hall of Fame, of course. I think he's still – who is it? Somebody – forget who he's tied with. 99 yards, the longest
that would
run
be
from scrimmage.
That would be Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, there we go.
Yeah.
So
and
just the other day.
Daniel Jones.
Rumbling, stumbling.
TD was I don't know. He was just, I mean, for me, obviously, again, with the time frame, just he was a superstar and part of those Dallas teams that didn't always win the big game, but did sometimes. And great fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Harry.
No, I mean he was higher. He was. I think I had him highest on my list out of anybody. Those Cowboys have had two incredible running backs, and he was certainly one of them. He was part of an offense that had some balance, but they really relied on him. He was he was, he caught the ball as well as ran the ball, and he was really, really good. I mean, in his era, he was right at the top.
Yeah, he was amazing. There was a lot of receiving that went on there too. And as a Giants fan back in the day when he played, and granted the first few years he played, were a hindrance to the Giants. But after that, the Giants became the elite of the NFC with Washington, and Dallas kind of fell out of favor. But when you're watching Dallas games, he was pretty much the star of what Dallas had going on for the rest of his career in with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So There you go. Number 10, Tony Dorsett.
Touchdown, right. Tony Dorsett.
TD, Tony Dorsett. There you go. All right. I'm going to take number 9, only because nobody else wanted to.
He was only on one person's list.
Yeah. He was only on one person's list, and I'm not going to tell you who it was, but it wasn't me or Harry. But I won't tell you who it was. No, it was Mr. And you know what? He was a good running back. He really was.
He was great.
He was great. He was great, even in Hertz commercials. And O.J. Simpson. O.J. I was going to Orenthal Jones, right? Orenthal Jones. Yeah.
James, I think.
Orenthal James Simpson. Yes, you're right. Orenthal James Simpson. He was. I was going to pick a different picture than this.
There was one team that he played with that had an orange uniform.
But yeah, no. I was going to pick a different picture than this. It was one that he had gloves on. They didn't fit him well.
Yes.
But in any event,
he's number 1 on Johnny Cochran's list.
Absolutely was. And hey, you know what? He's responsible for the Kardashians having a TV show. So I mean, let's put it that way. In any event, you know what? 5-time Pro Bowler. 72 through 76. He was drafted in the first round with the number 1 pick overall. Highest drafted running back on our list today, and he almost didn't make it if it weren't for one person. But yeah, he was the number 1 pick overall in 1969. Yeah, and they played a couple of years with San Francisco at the end of his career too. But yeah, 5-time Pro Bowler, 5-time first-team All-Pro, NFL Most Valuable Player in 73, Offensive Player of the Year in 73, Burt Bell Award in 73, AP Athlete of the Year, Associated Press in 73. 73 was just a crazy year for him. But the list goes on and on. Member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's, you know what? I mean, as much as we want to say whatever we say about him, and he just was a prolific running back. He just really was. So.
He was, and his college career was even better than his.
Oh yeah, his college career was crazy. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's plenty of negative things you could say about OJ. I don't know. He left the game early to pursue, a television and movie career, which he actually had some success at.
Well, he wanted to be Norberg in the Naked Gun.
Yeah, listen, he thought he was better than a lot of people, and didn't really, embrace certain aspects of the African American culture. Killed a couple of people. There's a number of negative things about OJ that you can say.
When you're a Southern California guy and you got to go play 8 years in Buffalo, I think
yeah.
And they weren't great teams either that he played on.
No, that's just, but he was. If you look at his college game, the offense was give the ball to OJ. And he went to Buffalo, and the offense was give the ball to OJ.
Yeah, exactly.
There was really not a whole lot going on there, and he was just a guy who produced, even when everyone in the stadium knew what was going on.
Right.
And he was really nobody had really ever seen anybody quite like OJ.
No, it was the kind of mindset like try and stop him, because that's all you had. That's all you could do, because nothing else was happening. So,
and that was 2,000 yards is still a monumental feat, and certainly becoming more so in the way the game is played now. But
sure,
OJ was, and he was just a national sensation. Yeah, it's just
and the only one on our list with a 12-part 30 ESPN documentary series about him.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yep.
All right, number 9, O.J. Simpson. Harry, bring us to number 8, please.
Number 8 is Marshall Faulk, who is a 7-time Pro Bowler. He is 8th in all-purpose yards, both passing and receiving, 12th all-time in rushing, and 8th all-time in touchdowns. I think he's somebody who maybe doesn't pop to the top of everybody's list, but he had a really prolific career, 100 touchdowns, just unbelievable, and was a Super Bowl winner as well, which not a lot of these guys were on this list. So 12,279 rushing yards, over 4 yards per carry, 767 receptions, and another almost 7,000 yards receiving, and another 36 receiving touchdowns. So 136 total touchdowns. Pretty incredible. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, Faulk was always one of my favorite players. He just, he seemed to do things on the field that just made your eyes pop out of your head, and good at every aspect of the game. Great pass catcher, and great after the catch. It's a joy to watch.
Yeah, he was really fun.
One of the never really had any issues with him as far as being, my team's rival or anything. Always a guy I rooted for. Marshall Faulk, excellent player, underrated, I think.
Yeah,
by a lot of people.
Totally underrated. Yeah, I totally agree. And he was on my list. And most of the players, folks, on this list, we all each had. A couple of them were in different positions, but most of them, not all, but most of them were on our list. So, there you go. Number 8, Marshall Faulk. Pete, why don't you take us to number 7?
Number 7 is LaDainian Tomlinson.
There you go.
No doubt he was great. Longevity, he played 12 years, I guess, which is pretty good for a running back.
Sure.
He was tough.
Especially nowadays, yeah.
Nowadays, yeah. Had a lot of 3,174 carries, 13,684 yards. Excuse me, 145 touchdowns. That's a number that really stands out. And 5 times a Pro Bowler, 3 times an All-Pro, MVP, league MVP, called member of the Hall of Fame, of course, and the 2006 Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. A class act, sort of just a workman, unsung in many ways, but definitely one of the all-time greats, and anybody would be happy to have him on their team. No question about that. LaDainian Tomlinson. LT, the other LT.
And who did he finish up his last 2 years of his career with?
Oh yeah, the Jets.
The Jets. Yeah, he went to an AFC Championship game too. So I mean, he did get that. So
yeah. So. We try to still. Those years are still painful.
Fun. So, but yeah, there you go. Just really, really good running back. I mean, he had to be on the list. He was one of these guys that, it could have been 1 of 20, but he just kind of rose above the rest of the cream kind of thing.
Yeah, and his stats, just when you look at him, you can't not put him on the list. I think playing in San Diego on teams that weren't necessarily perennial, AFC Championship teams or anything like that, he got lost in the mix a little bit. And probably another guy is underrated. I don't think he comes to mind with a lot of people who are casual watchers of the game.
Yeah, I agree. LaDainian Tomlinson, number 7, folks. I'll take number 6. Number 6 is Mr. Adrian Peterson. Mr. Adrian Peterson is still playing football. He's the only one on our list that not only is still playing football, but he's actually the only one on our list that is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And
not yet.
I don't think any of us. Yeah. I don't think any of us disagree with the fact that he will not disagree with the fact that he will be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Probably 5 years after he retires. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he'll be first ballot Hall of Famer there. But yeah, no, his stats are amazing. 14,605 rushing yards, 4.7 yards per carry. He was the NFL Most Valuable Player in 2012. Offensive Player of the Year in 2012. Just 7-time Pro Bowler, 4-time First Team All-Pro, 3-time Second Team All-Pro, 2010's Decade Team Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2007. 2007 is when he was drafted. He was drafted with the first pick. Folks, I want to point out the fact that every single player on our top 10 list tonight was drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. There's not one of these top 10 folks that were not drafted in the first round. So, anybody thinking that running back's not the position to take in the first round, well, this list pretty much puts that to bed.
Yeah.
Just an amazing back. I mean, he played for obviously his formative years and all of his accolades and where his career is going came from the Minnesota Vikings. He's on from 07 till 16, but he played for the Saints and the Cardinals in 2017. He played for the Redskins for 2 years, 18 and 19, and then he's on the Vikings now. Vikings. I'm sorry, he's on the Lions now. And continues. I mean, he's not doing a whole hell of a lot right now. Not just because the Lions are the Lions, but just because he's 130 years old. But
but he had had success even after what would be considered a devastating knee injury for almost anybody else.
Well, that's exactly where I was going. His knee injury was amazing, and that would have retired most players, especially running backs. Most players, period, especially running backs. And he came back, and he's had decent success since.
And he wasn't a kid when that happened either. No. It wasn't like it was his third or fourth year in the league, and he hurt his knee, and he was 26 years old and coming back from it. He's 47 when that happened.
Exactly, 47. Pretty much, though, yeah.
No, I know I wouldn't have come back from that injury at 47.
I wouldn't have come from that injury at 27. So,
well, I mean, it seems as if he's from a generation that's just a little bit more durable than what you're seeing with a lot of running backs now. You just don't. Everybody on this list has had a pretty long career, and I think that goes a long way, especially nowadays. It just seems like the lifespan of a running back just isn't what it used to be.
It's not what it used to be. And one of our coming up running backs on this list, it seems to be the benchmark for years of service for running backs, and we were all upset that he cut his career as short as he did, but.
Right.
But that's what it seems to be now. I think he kind of led the way for these future running backs, or these current running backs, and the future to cut their careers short. But hey, you know what? I'll speak about that when we get to it. But right now, we'll wrap up number 6, Adrian Peterson. Let's move on to number 5, Eric Dickerson. I'm sorry. Let's move on to number 5, Harry. Why don't you tell us who Eric Dickerson is?
Eric Dickerson was a running back who just happened to have over 13,000 yards rushing in his career. He was one of these guys that physically was very different than a lot of running backs. I think he was 6'3", 6'4". He ran very upright, which made him, seem like even more of a target. And yet he was one of the most explosive guys who could just wait and read the blocking schemes and then hit a hole like there was no tomorrow. And, He holds the single season rushing yards record, over 2,105 yards rushing in a season. He holds the rookie rushing record, over 1,800 yards rushing in his rookie season. And he ran for 248 yards in a playoff game. He never quite was on a team that could put himself in a position to win a championship. But he had a hell of a career. Played for the Rams, the Colts, the Raiders, and then the Falcons. And those last 2 years were not much to write home about. But on both the Rams and the Colts, he had incredible seasons. He was a 6-time Pro Bowler. He was the NFL Offensive Player of the Year in '86, and four-time NFL rushing yard leader in the '80s, in the mid '80s, where there was a lot of really good running backs. So Eric Dickerson, one of the best.
Yeah, and he definitely had the NFL award back in the '80s for best glasses.
That's right.
That's right. He was the guy that could kind of run you over because he was big, and he did run unlike really anybody else with that upright stance, and he was just so fast.
Yeah,
he was agile enough to make that one move and make somebody miss, and then he was gone. I kind of like I was going to say he's a bigger version of maybe like a Chris Johnson. Only I think it would be fair to say Chris Johnson was the smaller version of Eric Dickerson. In that aspect. Boom, one guy misses and then no one else is catching him. But if somebody was in his way, he was big enough to kind of stiff arm out his way through.
Yeah, he was a dual threat too. I mean, he had over 2,000 receiving yards. The other guy who was just on, who we just mentioned, who reminded me of him when he came into the league, was Marshall Faulk. Just for whatever reason, they sort of reminded me of each other. But Dickerson is, and he stood out from the crowd when he came into the league. He was, you just knew there was something special about this guy.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's, listen, you never want to say any record, records will never be broken, but I don't know if anybody's going to have that, get over that single season Like we're going to have a paradigm shift in the way the game is played, and that passing is basically outlawed for anybody to even get enough carries to have a shot at 2,100 yards.
Yeah, if the league continues down the road, it's going for however long. I mean, we'll all be long gone. Even if there are 5-year-olds listening to this podcast, they'll be long gone by the time that happens.
So the running back's going to be like the center in the NBA. Somebody's going to go, "What's that?"
Pretty much.
You mean they used to line up 2 of them in the backfield, and one would block for the other one, and you'd hand it off to the one in the back? That's crazy.
In the NBA.
That's in the NBA, yeah.
That's crazy. All right, that was number 5, Eric Dickerson. Pete, why don't you take us to number 4? I know you like this guy.
Yeah, for some reason I get all the Cowboys. I wonder why that is. Listen, he's the yardage leader. 18,355 yards, 4,409 carries. Just think about that. Now, again, longevity, many years with Dallas, a couple of years with Arizona there at the end. He really didn't do much, but his name is Emmitt Smith, and he's an 8-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro. 3 Super Bowls. That ain't nothing to sneeze at.
Nope.
MVP, and of course a Hall of Famer, and a handful of other lesser awards. But listen, Dallas always had a great offensive line. Anyone could run behind that, and he played forever, and that's why he's got all that. This guy was just good. You can't blame everything. You can't be a running back in the NFL who has that kind of success, and it's everyone else's. Everyone else is the reason. They're just he's a system running back. Emmitt Smith had a talent, and tough too. Remember a couple games against the Giants where he was, sort of the walking wounded, or at least that's how they played it up. Maybe that shoulder wasn't quite as bad as they made it out to be.
They played it up that way, but it didn't work out
a little
that
bit.
way.
But still, from a different era where guys carried the ball a lot of the time, and of course those were great Dallas teams with lots of weapons, but Emmitt Smith is the little engine that made them go.
Yeah. And kind of the guy you didn't hear as much about, you heard a little bit with his contracts and things like that, but he just, he's obviously deserving of where he's at on this list. He, as a Giants fan, trust me, you knew how good he was. You just couldn't stop him. Exactly. And, yeah, like you said, Dallas has had some pretty great running backs over the years. But he stands out.
He certainly. When you look at those Dallas teams, there was always someone who was more in the news than Emmitt Smith.
Right. That's what I mean. Is that he was the star of the team. He was obviously the best player on the field at any time, and yet he wasn't in the headlines because he just did his job. But if you look at his career statistics, they're
outrageous,
unbelievable, just unbelievable.
The stats are nuts. The stats are absolutely crazy.
And that goes a long way. Look, there's some guys who are at the top of our list who didn't really play all that long. He did, and he played on some good teams. He played on some, but I think that also goes to show you just how much. There was a little bit more of a balanced offense. He wasn't Jim Brown getting the bulk of every touch that goes on. So his numbers. He was a good receiver too, which I think people forget about. He was a blocker. He's just one of the. He had one of the. I think other than maybe the next person on the list or one of the next people on the list, he had some of the best lateral movement in the history of running backs. He could move laterally and then just accelerate. He was low to the ground. He was really hard to tackle, and he just did it year after year after year. And on those games back in when the NFC had some of the best defenses going. He was still getting his. Continued to dominate.
Yeah. Yes, he did. Even when as a Giants fan, you didn't want him to. He did. And most of the time, when it was a game that you didn't want him to, that's when he rose to the occasion. He just, and his last 2 years in Arizona too. There were no slouch years. He was still running. It wasn't like he just went out there to put him out to pasture, so to speak. You know,
it's kind of sad to see him, like a lot of these guys. You know, it's sad to see them on. He's a cowboy. I mean, you know, he's. It's too bad that he couldn't finish his career there.
Right? Yeah. No. Absolutely. You know, kind of like Joe Montana on Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
It's just you just see him in that uniform and you go, that's just wrong.
It's wrong. But again, he didn't.
He had some good years. He had
a couple of good years. He added to his stats. He padded his stats when he was out there. So he wasn't done. Just Dallas was done with him. He wasn't done running.
Yeah.
So, but there you go. Number 4, Emmitt Smith. I will take number 3. Number 3 is none other than Mr. Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders is, no middle name. I'll have to tell you that, no middle name. But in any event, he
no relation to Larry Sanders.
No Sanders to Larry Sanders. No.
Sorry, did that one throw you off a little bit?
There you go. I was waiting. I actually, most of the time I can tell these in the back of my mind, so I can pass right by them. But I wasn't getting there. No, his stats are just crazy. I mean, 15,000, over 15,000 rushing yards. 99 career rushing touchdowns, almost 3,000 receiving yards. And this was done in 10 years, folks. 10 years. His career was 10 years. He was drafted in the first round with the 3rd pick overall in 89, and he only played from 89 to 98 with the Lions, straight through, no other team. But the odd thing is the fact that he had 5 yards per carry. I mean, most of these other running backs, in fact, all of these other running backs, had 4-point-something yards per carry. And that has a lot to do with longevity, too. Once you get into your 14th or your 15th year, you're not getting as many yards per carry, so that's affecting your overall your overall number. But his yards per carry were crazy. NFL Most Valuable Player in 97, 2-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year in 89, 6-time First-Team All-Pro, 10-time Pro Bowler, folks. He went to the Pro Bowl every year he was in the NFL. Every year he's in the NFL. The biggest thing I have to say about Barry Sanders, and certainly not the only thing I would say about Barry Sanders, but definitely the biggest thing, is the fact that he was, and Harry hit it on the head before, we talk about Emmitt Smith being a system running back or anybody be a system player and everything. And it's true to a point with a lot of these other people. But Barry Sanders was the Detroit Lions. There was nobody else on the team at the time. He did what he did because of him, not because of the success of the team around him.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. So.
He was the most elusive running back in the history of the game. And you saw the game start to change. I mean, so much so that they weren't even really handing the ball off to him. They were tossing the ball to him. Yeah. He would sort of stop after he got the ball, like it was a shotgun and he was the quarterback, and then decide, okay, I don't see anything here, so I'm just going to run to the opposite side of the field for 40 yards and then proceed to gain 12 on the play. Right. It was unbelievable. He was I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say this. He was the most dynamic running back I've ever seen play. And there's one other that came close who's coming up on our list. Yeah, but there were things that this guy did that were unhuman. His lateral movement, his quickness, his acceleration, his ability to avoid tackles and break tackles was unbelievable. And he was also a power runner as well as being incredibly quick. Yeah, just one of the top, obviously top 10 football players of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely top 10 football players of all time. And I should say the top 4, and we've done 2 of them so far, 4 and 3. The top 4 running backs were the top 4 on all of our lists. I think 2 of them were switched on one of the lists, but they were the top 4 on all of our lists. So, Barry Sanders was just an amazing running back to watch. And, with the exception of probably the next one, and I'm not even going to put him over Barry Sanders, just tied or close to or in the mix with Barry Sanders, whatever you want to call it. He was the most fun to watch and running back. And
at times the whole team,
and at times the entire Detroit Lions team. He really was. They were. You expected them to win games But if Barry Sanders wasn't playing, you expected them to lose games.
It's why I started watching Detroit on Thanksgiving, because it was, those years with Barry Sanders where you're like, who knows what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he was the reason to watch those terrible, terrible Lions teams. And, what is there? His quote was it fourth and 8 is a rushing situation or something outrageous like that.
Yeah.
Just there was no. Go ahead, John. You're gonna.
What?
You know what it is? You know what it is? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah. There was no situation that he wasn't ready to take on.
No.
And as tough as nails, and a guy that you could watch, lose a yard, lose 5 yards, lose 7 yards, and then bust one for 85
straight through.
You did not take your eyes off the screen when the Lions offense with Barry Sanders was on the field.
You're right.
And and they were horrible teams, but he was he was a reason to watch. He was iconic and deserving.
Yeah.
And as I was perusing the internet, I saw a couple of couple of sites that actually had him as a number 1 over our consensus. Well, number 1. So the people that thought that highly of him.
I had him number 2 on my list, and the number 2 running back I had number 3 on my list. So, but they're so right there. It is what it is. But I just want to point one thing out too. Barry Sanders was quoted actually last year as saying that he believes the Giants' Saquon Barkley is destined to be one of the greats. I just wanted to put that out there. And leave it there.
Well, hopefully,
Saquon's going to be Barry Sanders, and Joe Judge is going to be Bill Parcells.
It's going to be the next Drew Brees.
Taysom Hill is going to be the number 1 sitcom on the WB network.
Well, listen,
that's King of the Hill, not
Sanders. Sanders could have had a a couple of more years too. If he'd had a little bit more successful, then he might have played a couple of more years and. Would have racked up some.
There's just something about ending your career early in Detroit. It's just such a wonderful place that
whether you want to or not,
you're done after a short career because you just can't take it anymore. That's what it really boils down to.
It's either that or suicide.
Number 3, Barry Sanders. All right. Why don't you, Harry? Why don't you take us to number 2?
Number 2 is, I think, somebody who I would put very close to Barry Sanders as the most electric running back that I've ever seen play. It's Walter Payton. Again, early in his career on Bears teams that were not great. It was the offense was give the ball to Walter Payton and watch him do things that you've never seen before. And he was another player that if he was on television, I was watching. And again, those Chicago games on Thanksgiving, he was just unbelievable. He ended his career with a Super Bowl championship, but his numbers are just staggering. Over 16,700 rushing yards. He averaged almost 4.5 yards per carry, 110 rushing touchdowns, another almost 500 receptions. I think 21,000 all-purpose yards. Just unbelievable. I think most people know about Walter Payton. If you saw him play, again, much like Barry Sanders, you knew you were watching somebody who was changing the game and changing that position. They called him sweetness for a reason. He just moved like maybe Gale Sayers is the only other running back that just was so graceful running down the field.
Sure.
And just an incredible athlete. He was one of those guys who changed the game. And, obviously a Pro Bowler, one-time Super Bowl champion, and held a lot of records that were broken, obviously, recently by some other, but led the league in rushing 4 times, 70s All-Decade Team, 80s All-Decade Team, NFL 75th Anniversary All-Time Team, and NFL 100th Anniversary All-Time Team. And could easily, I think he was number 1 on Pete's list. He winds up number 2. I think he was in everybody's top 3. And
yes, he was.
I think too, we're all of an age where he just left an indelible mark, and there's no doubt he will go down as one of the touchstones for this position.
It's going to be very difficult for any of these new running backs, and there are a lot of great ones. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just singling out Saquon Barkley, but I mean Alvin Kamara, any of these
Henry,
Derrick Henry, even Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he's a rookie this year. Who knows?
Looking very, very good.
He's looking friggin' great, But I think it's going to be. I think they're all going to wind up. Even Saquon. I think they're going to all wind up in that mix that we talked about from 5 to 10. That you could fit 20 or 25 or 30 guys in. But I think these top 4 are cemented as the top 4.
I just don't see any of these new guys having the longevity to get out.
Well, that's it. It's the longevity.
That's what I was going to say.
I wish that was the case, and I think Barkley was maybe the one guy who I could say, okay, he might have a chance, but I just don't see it happening. No. It's too hard. And I also think that one of the things that most of these guys on this list, they had longer college careers.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, guys don't stay on the same team for close to their whole career anymore. They get traded. The running backs devalued, and they get traded away to a lesser team. And it's harder to. You just don't have guys that, generally speaking, certainly running backs who play for the same team for 11, 12 seasons.
Right.
So listen, Sweetness was number 1 on my list by the slimmest of margins.
Yeah.
And just the overwhelmingness. I mean, certainly, I would say him and Jim Brown. You could make them co-number 1s, but you knew you were watching greatness.
No.
And he was just a guy that could be in so many ways. He was fluid. He was, as you said, Harry, graceful. He was slithery. He could run over you too. He had, he was a bull when he needed to be.
It didn't look like work.
No, and that's,
he could wait for a hole too. He could wait for that that slightest opening for the offensive lineman to do their job, and then bam.
And I think the comparison to Sayers is apt too. Actually, Gale Sayers was number 10 on my list, even though he didn't play for very long. You just you watched him, and you watched a guy like Sweetness, and you knew you were watching greatness.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, there's nothing more to say about it. He was just grace. Yeah, grace. Yeah. Walter Payton, Sweetness, Grace. That's, what you got to say about it. So, number 2, Walter Payton. Pete, let's hear about number 1.
Let's see.
You might have just mentioned him, but do it again.
Well, it's not like I'm really giving away a big secret here. It's Jim Brown, of course, number 1. What can you say? Cleveland Browns, 9 years total, 8 first-team All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler, champion in 1957, NFL MVP in 1958, as well as 1965, 12,312 rushing yards. And that is in 118 games, folks.
That's it. Just 118. Yep. That's it.
2,359 carries. Remember I said Emmett had 4,400. Well, this is 2,000 carries less than that, and about 6,000 yards less. 106 touchdowns, and 3-time MVP actually. 1960s Hall of Fame. All 60s team and all those kinds of awards. A sensation. And again, unstoppable Jim Brown. And if you want to talk about somebody who personified the tough guy, that was Jim Brown. He was as tough as they came.
Still is.
More than 5 yards of carry. Which
is unheard of, especially at an era when there was no passing. So the whole defensive scheme was let's stop Jim Brown.
Sure,
and he still averaged 5 yards a carry and had what is it? Did he have 1 touchdown per game? I think. He
got to 100 touchdowns in 93 games, I believe it was.
Yeah.
It was the fastest that anybody had done it up to that point.
Yeah,
and he set, I think, rookie rushing. He broke the single season rushing record, not as a rookie, I think in his second year maybe. Broke the rookie rushing record with I forget what those numbers were. But his
total touchdowns were 126 touchdowns. So
126. So let's see.
He was a Pro Bowler every season he played.
Every season he played.
Yeah, 100 touchdowns in 93 games.
Mm-hmm.
It's just insane. I mean, all-purpose yards 15,546. That's again, as you said, in an era where the whole defenses were geared to stop the running game. Yeah. He was really one of a kind. And look, he left early for whatever his reasons are.
Hollywood. No.
Yeah, listen, he was probably somewhat disenfranchised and obviously, taking a beating back in the day too.
Yeah, absolutely. A shortest career of any running back on our list tonight. Shortest career.
Yeah,
9
there
years.
you go. But I mean, they were 9 pretty amazing years.
Yeah,
they were.
And he did it. Let's be honest. The first 1, 2, 3, 4 years of his career, they only played 12 games.
Yeah.
The last 14 games. So everybody else on this list, I don't think anybody else on this list was playing in the 14 game era. No. They were all in the 16 game era. So
O.J. Simpson played 14 games.
Yeah. Okay.
Cup for 4 of his years or something like that.
Yeah. He's still somebody who, if he speaks, you listen. He's one of those guys. And he has a lot to say, and I think he's done maybe more so than anybody else on this list. He's done more for equality and human rights and speaking up for the African American community more so than anybody else. And sometimes he's taken a beating for that, but he's certainly lived one of those lives where he was groundbreaking at everything he did.
A lot of things he did, yeah.
An icon in more than just on the field, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
He used his celebrity and his voice and his strength to speak out about injustice.
And he used his celebrity and his voice and his strength to try and lure somebody too. I mean, just my one Jim Brown story was I was sitting in a restaurant at a bar in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and as I'm sitting there, Bill Belichick walks in, followed by Jim Brown, followed by Dave Meggett, and it was a meeting to try and lure Dave Meggett to go to the Browns when Bill Belichick got the job out there. So it was he's been used, his voice and his celebrity was used for a lot of things to lure players, but that was the least of it. No, his everything he's done since football has been amazing. And I said Hollywood. I joked about it before, but hey, you know what? His role in was it Any Given Sunday was pretty good.
He was in a lot of films.
He was in a lot of films. Yeah, no, he really was.
Yeah,
he was. But when you put Jim Brown in the same movie with Lawrence Taylor and Dennis Quaid and Al Pacino,
That's a trailer which needs extra room for people's parole officers.
Yeah, Richard Pryor tells a great story about Jim Brown and somebody who wanted some guy who was drunk and wanted to fight Jim Brown, and his friends were holding him back. And as Pryor says, the guy was cursing at Jim Brown, and Jim Brown just said to the man's friends, he says, "Gentlemen, I think if you let the man go, he could express himself a little better." And as Pryor tells it, the man was like turned to his friends. He's like, "You guys don't let me go for nothing." Because he realized, he was like, "You better hold me back, don't," because his bravado was gone in an instant. The moment Jim Brown opened his mouth and basically said, "Come get some if you want it." So, which that probably was not what he was expecting. So
not at all.
It's a great bit and a great story.
Yeah, he also played so long ago that he made Syracuse relevant in football.
He did. Hey,
Number one, Jim Brown.
There you go. Well, that concludes our top tens for this week. A couple honorable mentions, like I had said before. I had Marcus Allen on my list. Great running back between the Raiders and Kansas City, just insane.
Yeah.
And I also had Earl Campbell on my list too.
Yeah.
And I think Earl Campbell was my 10A, and I had a 10B, which we seem to be doing. Well, actually, I haven't done the last couple of weeks. Actually, Curtis Martin was.
He was on my list too, and interestingly, he was not on your list, Pete.
Yeah.
Well,
or was he? I don't think he was.
No, he wasn't on his list.
No, he was just on the outside getting in.
He's one of those guys
who would have been my 10B.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about him, you think, okay, top 20, maybe top 25. But when you look at his numbers, unbelievable. And a guy that I really wanted to put on my list, but he just didn't play long enough, was Terrell Davis. I think had he played another 3 or 4 seasons, he might be in people's top 7, 8, list.
Right.
He was that kind of player.
Oh, there were a lot. I mean, you could, it's like I said before, we could have gone in top 20, 25, 30. I mean, you could have put Garrett Sayers, you could have put John Riggins, you could have put just a number of
It's an interesting mix between the look at raw numbers and the impact they had on the game, and in a case like Sayers, I had him number 10 just because of what he did was so incredible, even though it was such a short time. So that's what makes a lot of these lists. This was by far the toughest list for me. I think for all of us.
Herschel Walker.
Yeah,
when you look at all-purpose yards, he's number 1 by running backs, I believe. He had a lot of kick and punt returns, but I mean, in a short career, he was another guy who was just like, whoa, this guy's a different type of player. Earl Campbell, John mentioned, he was another guy who just seemed like defensive tackles bounced off his thighs when he ran through the hall. So many that could be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he made those Houston teams relevant.
Yeah.
It kind of in the same way that they were a little better than some of those Detroit teams, but kind of in the same way that Barry Sanders, made the Lions at all relevant. It was Earl Campbell in Houston.
Absolutely, definitely. So, there's a number of players we could put on this, but definitely 100%. This was the most difficult list that we've done so far. So, there's our top 10. This list for this week. Running backs.
Next week's figure skating pairs.
Next week we're doing
Olympic figure skating pairs.
Olympic figure skaters from the 70s.
That's top 10 jockeys of the 80s.
Don't laugh, folks. They're coming up.
We're going to eventually run out of things.
Well, listen, we could do top 10 horses.
We could do that. We definitely could do that. But right now we're going to do.
You certainly could.
Right.
We'll save that for
Mr. Ed is number 1 for me.
Oh, Wilbur. Right now we're going to switch it up and not switch it up. We're going to continue with this and meld into what we've been doing lately, and we're going to go to our segment of Old Balls.
Old Balls.
Harry, why don't you tell us who this week's Old Balls is?
This week's Old Balls was on my top 10 list, and it is none other than Jerome Bettis, the bus, who...
Let me put his picture up. Hold on.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. I mean, over almost 14,000 career rushing yards, almost 4 yards a carry, 91 rushing touchdowns. He actually caught 200 passes for almost 1,500 yards, which is kind of odd thinking back on it. But this was a guy who was old school in a time when the league was transforming into much more of a vertical passing game. And, he was listed at 5'11", 260. I think in his last years, he was, had to be close to 300 pounds. I mean, he was just...
Oh, he gained a lot of weight in his last couple of years.
I mean, he was just the guy who gave him the ball. He gained, it was 4 yards and literally a ball of dust. But he was incredibly athletic. He really was. It's a 6-time Pro Bowler. He won a Super Bowl, obviously, with the Steelers, and was kind of the heart and soul of that Super Bowl team in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And he just did it for a long time. His numbers are pretty staggering when you think about him. I mean, he's right up there with the career rushing yards and touchdowns per game, yards per carry. He's right up there with all of the other top running backs in the history of the game. And while he's not that old, he's younger than us, and that is the first person that's not, somebody that's older than us on our old ball segment. He played older. He was an old school guy in a new school game.
Absolutely.
And I think he was also one of the guys who was just loved. He became kind of the face of the NFL in a lot of ways, just because he was sort of this fun-loving guy on a Steelers team that was won 2 Super Bowls after he left. But it's interesting because if you look at his numbers and Franco Harris's numbers, another guy who very easily could have been in our top 10 list, I think they're tied for touchdowns. I think they're right there with rushing yards in their career. So it's interesting. He may fall behind in a lot of things, but he had a long career, and he was a hell of a player. There's no doubt. I mean, the numbers don't lie.
No.
And a hell of a personality too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He was, and I think as he became an elder statesman and a veteran, that personality carried even more.
He was fun to watch, as a lot of these running backs were, and a lot of these players that we have on our top 10 lists in our old ball segments, they were just, if they weren't fun to watch, they probably wouldn't be on our lists. So,
I mean, the only player that I remember watching that was more brutal. Well, maybe there's 2, Christian Okoye and Earl Campbell. Those are the only other 2 running backs that I ever remember who were just more bruising. Like, I'm going to gain 3 yards, even though there's 4 guys right next to me. Like, I don't need a hole. I'm just going to push and bowl you over.
Hit me in the backfield. I'm still getting 4 yards.
Right.
Yeah. No, he was.
And you're going to pay for getting in my way.
Yeah.
You may stop me, but you're going to pay a price.
Exactly. Yeah. Ironhead Hayward might be on that list as well.
Ironhead Hayward. There you go.
But he just a real old school running back at a time when you didn't necessarily see that, and he had a hell of a career.
No, the league was shifting over to the pass, and he was the last throwback from that running back era.
And I think it's fitting that he played in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
there's just something kind of fitting about that. I think he's from Detroit, played in Pittsburgh. Just a blue collar kind of lunch pail kind of player.
Yeah,
and he actually
one of the few. Sorry,
I was going to say, first few years of his career, he actually played on the Rams.
Yeah,
but he was drafted by
very
the Rams,
underappreciated.
Totally underappreciated. He wasn't appreciated until he got to Pittsburgh. So
one of the few Steelers I ever liked.
Yeah,
being a Cowboys fan,
and a Jets fan. Let's face it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like the Steelers were keeping the Jets out of the Super Bowl every year.
No, but
I'm probably a bit unique in that I don't feel a lot of great rivalries for the Jets because, I mean, obviously Miami and, New England and stuff, but anybody outside of the division was just always so much better.
Well, yeah.
It was like a Yankees Red Sox thing.
Yeah,
right.
There you go.
It's like we're really just, it's not a huge rivalry between, Oakland, even Oakland and the Jets. Yeah, it's one game, whatever. Come on.
And the only one and he's the only one today that was on an episode of The Office.
What episode of The Office?
That's right.
That's funny. Yeah, it's very true. Very true. Well, there you go. That is our old balls for this week.
Old balls.
Jerome Bettis. There you go.
Jerome Bettis.
All right.
Maybe that should be the sounder from now on.
I think it should be Jerome Bettis. I think we'll need to work on that. There you go. All right. Well, hey, you know what? I mean, there is some other sports out there. So why don't we move on to what minor little bit of MLB Hot Stove we can talk about.
Okay.
Okay. So for this segment, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Not much going on. It's
hey, well, you know what? Charlie Morton, the Braves signed Charlie Morton.
They did.
They did. So that pulls
the Braves are going to be a tough team to beat next year.
They are. Yeah. They are looking to.
They were a tough team to beat this year.
Their pitching is pretty spectacular.
Yeah. They're getting. They're going to be a force to reckon with. I don't care how much money Steve Cohen spends on the Mets. They're going to be. The Braves are going to be. The Braves are going to be their nemesis. That they're going to have to be who they're going after. But as far as that goes, there are rumors out there that the Rays are looking to trade Blake Snell. So maybe hey, if Cohen wants to dump a bunch of money on some pitchers, maybe he can pull a trade for Blake Snell and get Trevor Bauer too.
That would be
nice.
That
would be very nice for Mets fans.
DeGrom. Oh man, imagine DeGrom, Bauer,
Snell,
Stroman,
Stroman,
and then when he comes back, Thor.
Yeah.
The Dodgers are also, not sitting still. That's for sure.
No, they're not. They're not. So I think they need to. I think they definitely need to bolster up that the Dodgers wise. I think they need to bolster up that lineup, starting lineup of pitchers because especially if they get back to the postseason, it's really hard to hang their hat on Mr. Kershaw in the postseason. They World Series winners, but he's still Clayton Kershaw. In the regular season he'll get you there. I mean, you want Clayton Kershaw during the regular season, and you want Masahiro Tanaka in the in the postseason. Although not necessarily this year.
Kershaw the last two playoffs has definitely
he's been better. He's been better.
Well.
He's been better. He's been better than he was years ago. Yeah, absolutely. But
he's still kind of crapped the bed more than he's been successful in the playoffs.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I think still one good performance in a playoff game or in a World Series run where when you win it, it's worth 2 or 3 kind of failing.
Yeah, but he did have he pitched a pretty good game this World Series, did he not?
Yeah, that's what I mean. This time around was real good, and
he pitched 2 good games, really.
No, he was the ace. He was what everybody was. He was everything that he has not been.
Right.
Up until this point. So, and that, that tends to wipe out a lot of that bad taste in people's mouths.
Well, on that note, whatchamacallit, you think the Yankees should go after re-signing Tanaka, Harry?
No, I don't.
You don't. Let him go.
Yeah, the Yankees need new pitching. They need a new pitching coach. They need a new closer. They need to get rid of these big contracts for these guys. If they could keep Tanaka for a modicum of what they're paying him, then yes. But he just I've said this before. Keep Garrett Cole. Keep DJ LeMahieu. Keep you got somebody solid at first base. You got 2 options at third base. Everybody else is to me, other than Aaron Judge, is fair game. They need pitching. And for some reason, other than the signing of Garrett Cole, they just they cannot land pitchers in the offseason. And I don't know what it is. Maybe they need it, and they need it bad.
Well, maybe Cashman can work out a trade. He can trade Sanchez to Tampa Bay for Snell. What do you think? Would you make that trade?
Yeah, I think I would. Throw in a ham sandwich. Case of hand sanitizer and a fax machine. Yeah.
Oh, I gotta love it. But yeah, well, there's not a lot of hot stove out there right now. But locally, that's pretty much what's going on. We're going to touch more on that as the hot stove.
But something happens.
Yeah. The Braves have been the only one that made a move. They signed Morton. And that's really been it. There hasn't been much going on. Mets haven't even hired a GM or a president of baseball operations yet. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll keep everybody posted. We'll see how everything is. One note on football, not to come away from getting away from football for a second, but the Hall of Fame nominees were released. I just wanted to point out the fact that I'm sure Mr. 18. Mr. Peyton Manning is on the list. What's the odds of him getting on the first ballot? What do you think?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
certainly wouldn't bet against it.
I think so.
I would vote him I would vote him unanimous if he just stopped doing commercials.
Specifically, which are you talking about?
The one with the tiny town with the country singer for the insurance.
Right.
I can't stand it. I just
Nationwide.
Whatever. Yeah.
There you go. So.
Yeah, that's a case where, and look, certainly he's gotten a lot of press about, being on Saturday Night Live and being affable and personable. And I go way back to the Gatorade commercial where Michael Jordan's interviewing him. for a job in the factory. He was great in that.
Well, he was great on Saturday Night Live with the when he's chucking the balls at the kids,
hitting the kids.
Yeah,
you suck.
But I mean, it's kind of a case where
trust me, I know more than anybody else the saleability of Peyton Manning. He's everywhere out here.
Well, but that's my point. Is that the problem with the celebrities that can do commercials well is what they don't understand is that people will get sick of it very quickly.
Right.
And of course the companies that hire them, that sign them, they want to just run, get every dollar out of it they can.
Squeeze every little.
They don't care if the audience gets sick of Peyton Manning as long as they still buy nationwide insurance or whatever.
Exactly.
And Papa John's Pizza.
And Papa John's Pizza.
Which is horrible.
So we'll see. I mean, as far as probably Baker Mayfield is probably up next as far as guys that who's good. I think he's good at his commercials, but everybody hates it. Everybody's sick of it already.
Good in his commercials, but everybody hates him. Yeah, and he's a third-year quarterback.
Yeah,
and
he's got years of advertising.
He's got years of advertising ahead of him. So,
but then again, I remember. I think it was Nobody Beats the Wiz. Used to have like Giants players.
Sure.
Right, just do voiceovers and they come down to the new. They could never.
But that wasn't national. That was
but I mean, they could never.
Used to have what's his name doing hot dog commercials. I could have been a wiener.
Yeah, but they'd struggle to get even the simplest lines out. But somewhere there was an advertising agency that was convincing this company that having Andy Pettitte, hey, I need a new refrigerator, was a great advertising. They were just locked into this concept and this campaign, and nobody knew that this is terrible.
Absolutely.
He was no Phil Rizzuto for the money store.
He was
not at all. Phil Rizzuto blew them all away. And I got a story too. I used to do some commercials back in the day, and I did a local, a regional car dealership spot. And we had Rodney Hampton on, and it was a Ford spot, and we needed him to say expedition, and he couldn't say it. It came out expeditious. Every time he went to say Ford Expeditious.
And everybody said, that's great, Mr. Hampton. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hampton. Here's your $1 million.
We're going to contact Merriam-Webster, and we're going to get that changed for you, Mr. Hampton.
We're just going to change. We're going to contact Ford and just change the name of the car.
Exactly. That would have been easier. It literally would have been easier to do.
Yeah.
So. Well, on the same note, I'm sure Mr. Peyton Manning will definitely get in on the first ballot. Also on this ballot is Megatron. Calvin Johnson is on this ballot too, and that points out another thing. Lions getting into the Hall of Fame after short careers because they were just done playing.
How many seasons did he play?
I
think it was 10. I think it was 10. It's both 10. Yeah, I believe.
He should get it.
I'm sure.
Really, I mean, that shouldn't really be considered a short career.
No, it's really not. But
10 years in the NFL is a lot of getting beat up.
Right. Well, I mean, if you ask Tom Brady, he might differ with you. But
he's untouchable.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that brings us to let's wrap up the show with some basketball talk. The Knicks, they're not making any moves. haven't made.
They're getting rid of people, and they're hoarding their money.
That's what they're doing. They're hoarding money. They're making their cap space even bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they're not going to use it. That's what they're doing. So,
I think they're waiting for I think they're going to tank this year and hope for the top pick in the draft.
That's what I think they're doing. Again, it's ridiculous, but they're. Talk on the street is they're less and less likely to make a move for Westbrook.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, but they're less and less likely. He wants to come. Houston wants to trade, but they're not going to pull the plug. And Hayward wanted the money in Charlotte. He didn't want to play with the Knicks, so that wasn't going to happen.
And he's overpaid. That's a bad move.
It's a huge contract for him. In Charlotte, it's
$30 million a year for 4 years.
Yeah, it's insane.
A guy who's coming off of a major injury.
Yeah,
that's risky, but he may earn it, but I think it's going to be very difficult for him to justify that.
To me, the most interesting move was Gasol going to the Lakers, and somebody who I thought was a big part of the Lakers championship team, especially against the Nuggets, leaving, in Dwight Howard. I think it's an improvement offensively. I think it's going to spread the floor a little bit more, but Dwight Howard, who's I've not been a huge fan of, played a hell of a playoffs this year. And he was a defensive presence that Marc Gasol is definitely not going to be. I don't know. Only time will tell on that. I mean, I think Gasol still has some gas in the tank. Yeah. But
Howard had. I mean, maybe they wanted to get rid of that persona, right? The agitator. I mean, I think it's a dumb reason to get rid of him because I agree, he was great for them and he was a catalyst. They were losing.
I think it was less about. I think they realized that maybe we're not going to be able to hold on to him. He raised his value. I think the only reason why they let him go is because they knew they had to in order to get Gasol. So I mean, They obviously think this is an upgrade, and it probably is overall. But when they switched Dwight Howard to playing Jokic in that Nuggets series, it changed things dramatically.
Yeah, it did.
Well, look, obviously LeBron thought that there was another way to go that was better. I'm sure everything kind of, at least gets passed by him.
They're
going to at least seek his tacit approval of these sort of moves. So,
are you shocked about Van Fleet?
No.
Yeah. Thought he was going to stay.
I mean, if I'm Fred Van Fleet, I'm staying. I mean, he's a hero there. Right. It's much like Kyle Lowry. I mean, I think Fred Van Fleet's a really good player. I think putting expectations on him to carry another team is too much. Right. I mean, if he went to the Lakers or to the Clippers or to somebody like that, then yeah, I mean, that's a great pickup. But who do you have to give up to get him?
Right.
And I think he's just one of those guys who's pretty happy where he's at.
He's like a folk hero in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
yeah. And Toronto's a great city. I mean, it's a lot better than going and playing Orlando or, I mean, I don't know where, I don't really think there was anybody else.
Or Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
At this point, anyway.
He's not, he's one of those guys who's a number two, maybe a 1A or 1B on a team at times in certain situations.
Sure.
But they've got a lot of talent, a very good, GM in Toronto, and they're able to put a team together. Now they've lost some players this offseason too. Serge Ibaka going to the Clippers. I think that's a big upgrade for the Clippers.
That's a big move for them. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, I think that's a big upgrade.
Yeah. I don't know what other, offers Van Fleet had, but I mean, if you're looking at where he has the best chance to win, certainly within the Atlantic Division, where Brooklyn is now the hands down favorite, it's with the Toronto Raptors.
But
I don't think Boston or Philly are as an attractive a destination, even if whether he had offers to go there or not. And certainly, I mean, go to the Knicks and do what? Flounder for the next 5 years?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Atlanta would have been an interesting fit. I think him and Trae Young would have been good. The other team that I thought Fred Van Fleet would have maybe made a big difference on was Dallas. I think you put him in the back with Luka Doncic. I think that's an interesting backcourt.
Right.
The thing with
Dallas has the money for that, though.
Yeah, exactly.
They're willing to spend it. Yeah.
And I mean, Van Fleet got 4 years, $85 million. So it wasn't. I mean, it's a good contract, but it's not. It's
not your max contract.
No. He took less money. He's going to pay more in taxes in Canada because he's double dipping, obviously. But the thing with Ibaka is that he had a great year the year that Toronto won the championship. He did fall off last year, and I couldn't quite really picture what was going on there. So the Raptors are really good at gauging personnel, and I think they saw much more upside with Van Fleet. Ibaka, I'm surprised Ibaka left.
Yeah, where was he before?
He was Toronto? He was on Oklahoma City.
Oh yeah, and he was.
Well, he was part of that team.
He was real good
with Durant and Russell Westbrook.
But even after they had departed, I mean, he was kind of the heart and soul of that team.
He kind of relies on his athleticism. He's one of those guys. I mean, he's not the defender he was 4 years ago, even 2 years ago. He's 31. So, but I think on that Clippers team, he'll be. And look, obviously, you don't think Kawhi had a say in that. You don't think Kawhi knew how valuable Serge Ibaka was to him.
Right.
I mean, I think there's a reason why he's going to the Clippers.
Well, right, and because he doesn't have to go there and be
Right.
one of the focal points. He can be the veteran, experienced presence. Former pretty darn good player who maybe he's lost a little bit, but he's still going to contribute. That's all he needs to do there.
That's right. Rebound, play defense, and occasionally put the ball in the basket on an offensive putback.
Right.
Yep.
Well, it's going to be interesting how everything plays out. We got a little over a month, actually a little less than a month before the season starts. So there'll be probably not as many, but a few other moves, and I'm sure the Knicks will get rid of everybody. And
well, they already have. I think they signed a lot. They got rid of long-term contracts. They signed a lot of one-year contracts, so they can get out of it. And I'm drawing a blank on the kid's name who's projected to go number 1 next year. But I think that's what they're banking their season on. I think they're going to this year. There might not be anybody in the stands anyway. So I don't really think it's going to be one of those years.
Right.
Where
well, there's certainly not going to be any of the stands in the beginning of the season. Who knows what's going to happen by the end of it? But to start it out, there's none. So,
but they don't have anything to really. No. I mean, what's left of the Knicks is I think they're a worse team right now, looking at their roster than they were last year, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, it's saying
for me, the question of the Knicks is: are they going to actually stick it out and follow? Assuming there's a plan,
No, that's the wrong assumption.
Well, I don't know. I think they're. Yeah, you're right. You're probably right. There's probably still plan.
I mean, I think,
if there was a plan, would they be able to stick with it for more than a year and a half?
Yeah,
they haven't been able to.
I think the Knicks' plan is to make as much room as possible, cap wise,
right?
To have as much money to throw at free agency as they possibly can.
So they're going to be looking at bringing in two max players
to tank and get the first round pick.
Tank at the first round pick and add 2 max players.
And have a chance. I mean, I think in the Knicks fantasy world, somebody like Giannis is on their radar.
Right.
And he might be. I could also see Giannis going and playing with the Lakers.
Right.
So I can also see him staying where he is.
Yeah, he'd probably be smart to stay where he's at, because I think Milwaukee's actually better than they were last year.
Drew Holiday's a big addition for them.
Yeah, I think they're going to be better.
That might be what they need to get over the hump. Somebody else that can carry some of the load.
Ago,
The East is theirs to lose. I mean, they had a bad playoffs this past year. The break really
screwed everybody.
Screwed them up.
Screwed them
big
up.
Time.
But Antetokounmpo's, his limitations have been exposed.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now they're bring in somebody who's going to help out with that and going to make them a better team for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Carmelo re-signed with Portland. Yeah. He's going to end his career there. Portland's made some moves that I mean, they're going to be, I think, have a bounce back year and be a team to reckon with again.
Sure.
The Nuggets haven't really made many moves, and we'll see what happens with them. But they've lost a few players here and there. They've lost some defensive depth. They should also, with a healthy Will Barton and some other younger players stepping up, I think that hopefully they'll still be able to have a year similar to what they had last year. So the West is still going to be interesting. Yeah. I think the East it's Milwaukee's to lose.
Yeah, it's
we'll have to see what Miami does.
True,
the team is largely intact,
but I could see Miami dropping off. I don't know why, but I could see the other. There's talk of Antetokounmpo going to Miami, so
it would be a great fit for. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say they were magic last year.
No,
but not that they were playing way over their heads, but maybe they were not as good as they played.
It just goes to prove. I mean, Jimmy Butler's a difference maker, and
he is.
Yeah. He's a guy who, when the playoffs come around, plays. And I think the thing that hurt a Butler is that this playing almost every day.
Yeah,
it helped some of these younger teams, and I think it hurt some of the veteran teams a little bit. And that's one thing I didn't really quite love about. I think the NBA handled the bubble better. I think the NBA and the NHL handled themselves really well, and I liked the pace of everything. But there were too many games on top of each other.
Right.
It's kind of nice because you're not waiting forever. They also wanted to be able to finish last season before this season started, so I think they were successful in that regard. But, hopefully there's more spacing in the playoffs this year. A little bit, maybe not as much. They don't have the travel days, so that's good. But maybe two games, 1 game off. 2 games, 1 game off. Something along those lines that just breaks it up a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely puts more pressure on sort of those on the edge teams where a guy like Jimmy Butler or that have kind of that one star player. That guy's got to have a great game every game, night after night.
Right.
And it makes it tougher for them to compete with a team that has, 2 superstars and a couple of other really, really good players.
Well, and I think it just goes to add to LeBron's legend, for lack of a better word, of that, at his age, he was able to perform with the number of minutes that he played on a team that wasn't necessarily the deepest team in the playoffs.
Right.
He's a system forward.
He's a system guy. Yeah.
He just happens to always be in the right system.
He was also number 11 on our top running backs of all time.
He was number 11A, actually. Yeah.
And I think he was 15 on the top tight ends list.
He was 8, but we had to take him off for tactical reasons. Yeah. I mean, imagine LeBron James as a tight end in the NFL.
That would be funny. That would be interesting and funny at the same time. All right, well, there's, like I said, there's the basketball season starting a little less than a month, so there'll be some more interesting moves.
And how about those Canucks?
Oh yeah, how about those Canucks?
I'm not going to say any more. I don't think I need to.
I don't think anything else needs to be said. So, but in any event, that pretty much wraps up the show for today. We'll talk more about everything next week. I want to thank everybody for watching. And for those of you listening to our audio podcast, thanks for listening. So don't forget to visit our website, www.logroom.com. That's LAGERROOM.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of your social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Log Room. Remember, we go live with the sports video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday at 7 o'clock ish. For those of you that want to just listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds, and you'll never miss a show. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy your whatever family you can have over tomorrow, and the food and the football and everything about the holiday and the weekend, of course. And we will talk to you soon, folks. Take care, guys. Cheers.
Peace.
Go Jets.
The people who love